Centuries ago, the angels saved New Capenna from the oil unlife that threatened to consume it. For centuries, the plane had been safe from the encroaching enemy, but that time was over. They lent their knowledge of the threat to their sisters on other planes, but that was no longer enough. Now the multiverse cried out for their help. Another angel, corrupted and dark, arrives on New Capenna to cut her way through the city, reaping the rewards sown by the sins of its people. War machines rumble through the streets, toppling buildings that had stood for generations. The angels sprang to life from stone, reclaiming their corporeal forms. Some are shattered by Phyrexia, dematerializing into shimmering halo, so they may still serve their city. There are fewer angels in New Capenna than there once were, and Phyrexia's armies were teeming in the tens of thousands. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ether Hub. I'm Sai, bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. Today we continue the story of March of the Machine, Magic's latest set of powerful new team-ups and mechanics. In our previous chapter, which you can find linked on your screen right now or in the description below, we traveled to the plane of Ravnica and witnessed the invasion as led by Vraska. The Gorgon Planeswalker relished in the lives she ended, but somewhere deep in her mind, an uncorrupted version of herself screamed out in agony. Now we turn our attention back to New Phyrexia. Wrenn had opened a portal to Zhalfir and brought back Teferi. Elspeth, now transformed into an angel, was beginning to reach her limits. The battle comes to a head as the story of March of the Machine nears its end. Remember, if you enjoy the content, consider supporting it by leaving a like, becoming a subscriber or member of the channel, dropping a super thanks, and sharing it with friends. Now let's continue with March of the Machine, Chapter 16, The Old Sins of New Phyrexia by K. Arsenault Rivera. It is fortunate that angels are not New Capenna's only protectors. While they defend the crumbling buildings, demons and devils take the offensive. Working together is the price they pay to keep the inhabitants of this city safe. The youngest angel, Giada, wants to help, but she isn't strong enough to fight. All she can do is shout out to the others where they're needed the most, while Atraxa leads her army into Park Heights. The corrupted angel does not see the work of the Riveters. They're too small and inconsequential. They're beneath her. This would be her undoing, as an explosion ripped through the city and buildings broke free of their pylons and suspension systems. Angels watched as centuries of mortal work crashed down on Atraxa. The barbs of the invasion tree began to retreat back to their home, leaving a pathway open to a counterattack. Giada sees a portal to Theros' wine-dark seas, where the sky shimmers with the belief of its people, though the plane itself had no angels of its own. She directed the others to the portal, and the angels willingly burst through. They felt no fear, no hesitation, no regret. This is what angels do. They protect. There is one god on Theros who notices their arrival, the corrupted Heliod. He is too distracted to notice Kaya crawling up his carapace. That is, until she drives a dagger into his throat. The angels ensure no single drop of black oil touches the planeswalker as Heliod's sun sets. Kaya lands softly on the ground, and Ajani is there to meet her. But what does a god killer have to fear from a mortal? The portals of New Capenna shift, and Giada calls for the angels to charge into planes where they're worshipped, planes where they're hated, and planes where they're completely unheard of. Then the portals turn to New Phyrexia, and Giada sees her friend, Elspeth Terrell. There are thousands of Phyrexians charging the platform she's standing on, but she sees the portal and a smile forms on her lips. Giada calls for another charge. Those who go to New Phyrexia to join Elspeth will not return, but it is a small price to pay to save the multiverse. Armed to the teeth, the Zhalfiran war clans were happy to meet the Phyrexians. Koth was confused as he watched them charge, but Teferi explained with a smile. Wrenn had found Zhalfir, and now it was trading places with New Phyrexia. They would join the multiverse again, and the corrupted plane would be flung into the abyss. There weren't many Mirrans left to mourn their plane, but those who remained were determined to make sure New Phyrexia never forgot them. Zhalfir had awaited their chance to prove their mettle against Phyrexia for years, and in mere minutes, they drove a wedge in the forces of the Phyrexian army. Teferi rides at the vanguard, magic swirling around him, slowing everything so his army can pluck weapons right out of their enemy's grasp. The praetor Vorinclex leaps towards the Zhalfiran army, but hits the wall of Teferi's time magic. No one, no matter how fearsome, looked intimidating while moving in slow motion. A smile breaks on Koth's face as he drives his fist into the ground, sending cracks to surround and protect Teferi's army. Chandra sends fire through the cracks, shielding and fueling the Ascari's burning weaponry. Vorinclex finds purchase against the wall of time and is able to rip the jaw from Teferi's mount. He's sent tumbling, and the Praetor stands over his prey. A blazing sword severs Vorinclex's head from his body, and an Ascari woman named Shella offers a hand to help Teferi up. He thanks the woman, but before he can get back to the battle, he notices a figure above him. At first, he's confused, and then he understands exactly why his friend, Elspeth, is here with them now. She told him to order his forces to hold off Jin-Gitaxias, as well as Elesh Norn, so that she could take care of a completed Nissa. The roof of the sanctum cracks above them as new Phyrexia and Zhalfir switch places in the multiverse. No amount of Phyrexian armor could withstand the forces of mass and gravity. Smears of black oil are all that remained of those who were squished beneath falling metal boulders. Then there is Elesh Norn, towering above even her war machines. Her porcelain armor pitted and torn away, revealing ragged sinew beneath it. She strikes Teferi, screaming that Phyrexia will never die. A volley of lightning, fire, ice, and bolts of verdant energy beat her back as she staggers, mouth open in shock. Clutching her wounded chest, she looked around and screamed at her forces, asking why they weren't protecting her. She was Phyrexia. The army stops, but only long enough for Jin-Gitaxias to speak up. From atop his giant war machine, he declared that new Phyrexia had evolved beyond her, but her scraps may serve some use. New Phyrexia had turned against itself. And then there was the boom of a planeswalker's arrival. A badly wounded Ajani was there to defend Elesh Norn. For the brave Leonin, Phyrexia stood together or not at all. So he fought his former colleagues, the Phyrexian Centurions who turned traitor, with his axe and then with his teeth and claws, after his weapon was taken from him. Zhalfirans capture Ajani in a net, but before they kill him, Teferi shouts to take him alive on an instinct he cannot name. Ajani thrashes until a spell freezes him solid, and the warriors drag him away from the fight. Teferi and the Vanguard head straight for Jin-Gitaxias, who's now distracted by his civil war against Elesh Norn. The blue-aligned Praetor turns to see the glory of the Zhalfiran army and taunts his organic foes. He gestures, and the war machine opens to spinning blades and spikes that stop their mounts in their tracks. Teferi ducks the oncoming swing of a Centurion. Blades, tendrils, and barbs all slow as he weaves his way toward Jin-Gitaxias and his war machine. He lays a hand on the flat of a blade to stop them all from spinning. A Zhalfiran woman soars overhead. Her giant warhammer cracks over Jin-Gitaxias' head, sending him into the bulb of the war machine that held his newt-like body. The liquid contents of the vat spilled onto Teferi, but new clothes were a small price to pay to watch Jin-Gitaxias be devoured by his own creation. Teferi looked toward the invasion tree, seeing that the portal was almost closed. Most had already gone through to Zhalfir, but Koth, Chandra, and Karn remained. Teferi calls for the retreat, as Zhalfir fends off new Phyrexia to let the Mirrans escape. By the time Teferi makes it back to the platform, nearly everyone has gone through the portal. He can see his home waiting to welcome him on the other side. He can see Wrenn, too. She had become a delicate and ashen statue attached to the invasion tree. None of this would have happened without her. Teferi wished he could do something to help. Then he sees it, an acorn in the ash that would grow as strong as she did on Zhalfir. Teferi plucks the acorn up and puts it in his pocket, then turns to face Nissa with the remaining planeswalkers. Chandra didn't want to go through the portal without her, even though she hurled boulders at them. Chandra steps out from Koth's shield and dares Nissa to kill her. Teferi wants to stop her, but a dismantled Karn assures him that Chandra will be alright, and beckons him over for a favor. Just then, Elspeth arrives in a flash of light, driving the pommel of her sword into the back of Nissa's head. The elf falls from her copper armor out of the sky, and Chandra is there to catch her. Karn asks if Teferi would buy him another moment, so that he may walk out of this plane under his own power. As time slowed, Karn starts to build a new body, layer by layer. On the horizon, Elesh Norn crawls toward them as nothing more than a skinless abomination. Her former subordinates had torn the legs from her body, and Karn would do the rest as the others escaped. Karn felt heavy. Since Urza's death, he felt heavy every day in one way or another. The weight of the multiverse paled in comparison to what he sometimes felt. And, on some days, what he feels is the weight of the multiverse. MIRRODIN was his creation. Its corruption was his fault. He looked around at his friends, Teferi slowing time to allow Karn his wish. He had finally righted the wrongs of his youth, and Elspeth had found her home after running away for so many years. Karn understood that you can't run away from your mistakes. You have to fix them. Karn steps forward to confront his wrongs, laying his hand on what remained of Norn's head. To assemble something was a delight, but in destruction there could only be solitude. Karn tried to avoid exterminating life whenever he could. What right did he, whose life was so artificial, have to end the life of another? But there was no other solution if he wanted to save the lives of the many. So he began to disassemble Elesh Norn with his magic. He tears porcelain from wires while he wishes he could stop, but he knows he must continue. The sight of Norn's corpse burns into his memory. Violence, even in service of the greater good, should never be easy. And it wasn't easy here. Karn needed to do this, to fix his own problems, and killing Elesh Norn was the smallest way for him to take responsibility. It is done, and the Mother of Machine is a smear of red against the white platform. Karn joins Teferi, who resumes time, and the two step into Zhalfir's welcoming arms. The first step toward a lighter future. Wow. With only one chapter left in the main story of March of the Machine, we see the story of New Phyrexia come to a close. So much has happened here, and yet I feel so much is still on the horizon. We still have another chapter left, as well as the entire epilogue of March of the Machine, Aftermath. So even as Phyrexia now fades from MTG history, its effects will linger throughout the stories to follow. As Wrenn stretched herself and burned through her body, the invasion tree is essentially destroyed, its branches withering back from the multiverse. Her final act was to do a reverse Wrathy overlay, swapping New Phyrexia's place in the multiverse with that of Zhalfir's. Essentially, New Phyrexia would now be lost to time and space, existing but in nowhere in particular. I will say I'm a little disappointed at how the remaining Praetors are finished off, mainly Vorinclex and Jin-Gitaxias. They're killed by, essentially, minor characters, these random warriors. Not only that, their demise was met in just a few lines. I think they deserved a little more of a fight than that. Elesh Norn's defeat feels right. She could have been killed off by Elspeth, but that would have seemed too predictable. Seeing the Mother of Machines waver to Elspeth and losing her control over New Phyrexia was a much more fitting end. She was swallowed up by the thing that she thought she stood for, but Phyrexia cares for no individual, even their Mother of Machines. Once she was weakened, loyalty was divided and her defeat assured. It was also fitting that Karn deal the final blow, ending what he accidentally started. I love the idea of New Capenna's angels flying throughout the multiverse to help in the attacks, namely on Theros. What I don't like is just a single paragraph describing how a corrupted Heliod is killed by Kaya. Then Kaya fights Ajani, and Ajani is injured but returns to New Phyrexia. It was all just a little disjointed, but what I really want to see is, how did Kaya cut the goddamn god of the sun's throat? Please, put this on a card. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's video, everyone. Remember, if you enjoy the content, consider supporting it by leaving a like, becoming a subscriber or member of the channel, dropping a super thanks, and sharing it with friends. It all goes a long way in helping us build this community. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!